Hello, I'm Emmett, and I'm here with my helpers, Elfdorf, then I get it straight,
Agdawonk.
and Eiffel.
An iPhone.
And we're going to talk to you today about thinking. And the biggest thing that we got is a think sign that you see there in front. And basically that's what our whole talk is about. And we're going to teach you, or try to teach you, different ways of thinking. So we have over 155 years of experience between us, of thinking experience. And we hope to show you more than one way to do something. So there's really no such thing as one way. And that's why we got the sign behind me that says no such thing as one way. Because if you had one way, then every morning when you left the house, you'd have to go all the way around the earth to get back home. So there is no such thing as one way. And
You know, if there's a hurricane evacuation, all the one-way roads into town go one way out of town, don't they?
they sure do. Yeah, that's another case where there's not just one way. You think it is, but it's not. You have anything to add, Eiffel?
I agree with you guys.
That's good. That's all right.
There's always there's always ways to look at both sides. So
Right. So if I look at both sides of a coin, always look at both sides, what happens then?
Well, if you only look at two sides of the same coin, you're not going to see the edge of the coin, are you?
Oh, that's a very good comment.
So look at all sides, or as many as you can find.
And in
I guess.
reality, you got more than one side to every subject. No matter how you look at the subject, you got more than one side.
okay.
And the edge is a very good way. So the next thing we want to talk about is birthdays. And that sign over there says, what was your birthday? So what was your birthday?
I bet you can't guess.
Well, I bet I can guess, but within plus or minus 3 days.
How are you going to do that?
I'd like to see that myself.
You'd like to see that yourself? Well, if I guess Tuesday, there's only 7 days, so if I guess Tuesday, I'm plus or minus 3 days. I've got your birthday nailed down. It's one of those days. It ain't a month and a year. Everybody tells me their birthday
My
was-
birthday's January.
Right, and that's a month. I asked you, what was your birthday?
Which
That's
would
a
be a
birthday.
number, correct?
No.
It's February
Because
the
the numbers
3rd.
change from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every year the number changes what day it is. My birthday was on a Tuesday.
My
And
birthday
so-
was on a Tuesday.
So everybody has to be born on one of the 7 days.
Good. Okay, well,
So-
let's have a birthday party Tuesday.
I think that's pretty good. And another thing is, the flip chart says, how many birthdays have you had? So I'm going to ask you again, how many birthdays have you had?
That's a good one. I really thought about that one, and I think I've had 40 birthdays.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's how we get to 155 years earlier. as we added them together.
Well, if I have 56 Tuesdays for 45 years, then that's more birthdays than I can count.
Well, you know, as it turns out, I think that you guys have been lying to me. Not that you're trying to lie to me, but
Probably.
I kind of think you've been lying to me.
Why is
Because
that?
I'll bet you that you've only had one birthday and you had 40 anniversaries of your birthday. I will say that you weigh 6.5 pounds one time in your life and you don't weigh 6.5 pounds now. I don't know, but I could be wrong.
Just between the ears.
Just between the years, yeah. So anyway, that's how many birthdays you had, and that's the way I see it. And all I want you to do is just see a different way
Well,
of
it's
looking
totally,
at the same thing that
it's
you've been looking
totally
at
a
for
different way
years.
of thinking of it, because when I
Yeah.
thought of it, I was thinking 40 birthdays. But then when you said that, I have definitely only had one day that I was born on. So that is correct.
And the days are only Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You know, that's the way it works. as when I went to school. Now, it could be different today, you know, because they teach different things all the time. But
Correct.
New math.
okay, so let's take another example. Let's say uh, you've heard the phrase "never give up."
Yes.
So, if you've heard that phrase, what's it mean to you?
Well, it means if you're thinking about stopping what you're doing, don't stop. Keep going.
Continue to try.
Keep going.
Right.
See, I read that different. It's on the flip chart, but it says never give up. So if you can't give up, what can you give?
Down.
Down is a good thing because
guess.
it's goose feathers and makes pillows and blankets, and you can give down. You can't give up. They say that's the rule. You can't give up, but you can give down.
I give up.
And it's just a different way of looking at life. Yeah. So that's
And no one
very-
wants to give down.
Well,
You
yeah,
never
but-
see a charity that says, give what you can. It's always, we're trying to reach a limit, so give up. So that's really
Well,
good.
yeah, but I'll bet you somebody's been given down to make a pillow or a blanket sometime and had a goose feathers to do that. They use now fiber fill instead of goose feathers a lot, but it's still just a way of looking at. It's another way of
A
looking
different,
at.
yeah, the words.
Yeah. So, what do you think? What's the answer to these questions? What do you think? And another question I have is, what do you call a person who's born in Mexico and moves to the USA? What would you call that? You know, with the news being the way it is and all the things of fighting about immigration and all that kind of stuff, what would you think about
I'm going to
that?
let you answer that.
I'll call them anything they want. I give up. Give down.
That's fair. I think I'd call him an American.
You would call him an American?
Yeah, I would call him an American.
And why is that?
He was born in North America, and if you were born in South America, you could also be an American. It doesn't matter. If you're born in America, you're an American.
Well, that definitely makes me think, because if that's the case, then why are they calling them illegal aliens if they're American?
That's a whole
In some
different
form.
story. You came into this country illegally, but if you were born in America, they use America to represent the United States.
Correct.
So my Costa Rican ancestors were
They
American.
are American, yeah.
Makes you think. I
And-
definitely didn't
and-
know that.
And all the other things is, you know, people think that there's only one way to look at it because they only hear one way, they only see one way, or they're only watching one TV show, and that's what they tell them. But, you know, it's not wrong. It's hard. You can prove me wrong if you can prove me wrong. I mean, if they were born in America, they're born in America. But to the people's misconception of America, when you say America, they say that means the USA. Doesn't mean the USA.
Correct. I've heard
It
that.
doesn't mean that at all. Yeah. So
Well, that's what we think.
what do you think, people? What do you think? The next thing is I think, Perry, you got a glass down there, and we got a flip chart picture too that we'll show you later, but we got a glass, and he's going to fill the glass with some Gatorade. Okay, so there's the glass, and all I want to know is, what is the contents of the glass? You know, you've heard the story half full or half empty, and I ask waitresses this question all the time when I talk to them. I say, and you run out of water, and you say, I need water, or whatever. So the thing is you say, okay, what's the contents of that glass? And they'll look at the glass, and they'll say, I think that's a little more than half full.
I think it's half full because I'm an optimist.
Okay, what do you think?
What do you
it is?
think?
A little bit past half full, just about.
You know, in reality, the glass is full.
What are you looking at?
And why is that?
Well, it's full of Gatorade to the green line, and then it's full of air to the top.
Oh. Yeah.
Wow.
It's always full, unless the glass is under a vacuum or some other thing. It's always full. It's either full of air, full of water, or full of something.
Full of something.
Full
Well,
of
how
something.
about that?
So
Definitely
I
didn't think
just
about
say
that.
that's a different way of looking at the same thing.
I'll
Just-
think about it differently now.
Yeah. So anyway,
That's what I
that's
think.
that's the difference. What do you think? I want to give you a good example of my 2 cents. And I got this story from my doctor, because I tell him jokes now and then, and he come in and said, I got a story for you. And he doesn't have 2 pennies in his pocket. He just starts telling me the story. So these 2 pennies are face up, and you'll see them in a minute. They're just
Okay.
regular pennies.
2 pennies
And
on
so the first thing I ask is, do you see a poker hand or a fruit there?
It looks like money to me.
True.
Well, I'll tell you what I see, and what he told me was he seen a pair. A pair is a poker hand, and a pair is a pair of pennies.
You beat me.
Well, I'm not trying to beat you. I'm just trying to make you think something a little different.
Well, it does make sense. A pair.
Okay, so
A pair wins.
do you see a car there?
Definitely don't see a car out of 2
Not
cents.
enough money for a car, in my opinion.
Whose picture's on it?
Link.
Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
Trying
Yeah.
to see where he got us.
It's another way of thinking, right? So it's,
Definitely.
Okay, so do you see a snake there?
I do not.
2 copper pennies.
I would see 2 copper heads.
Because the pennies
copper
are on
heads.
head.
Yeah,
Two
there are
copper
2
heads.
copper heads. Okay.
I like that.
So do you see dancing girls?
Do I see dancing
Do you
girls
see dancing girls?
on Lincoln's head? No.
Wouldn't mind, but not yet.
What do you expect for 2 cents?
Okay.
So what do you think, people? That's kind of the things that I want you to think about different as far as our examples that we give today. But I got some other things, because thoughts are always in everybody's mind. You can't live and do anything without thinking. And it doesn't matter what you think or how you think, but how you think makes a difference, because if you don't think of enough situations or enough variables, you don't really have a good handle on what the things could be. So think before you act is my first thing about thinking. And I'd like to say, if you think before you act, how many people would be in prison that are in prison now? If they thought 5 minutes before they committed the act that they were going to commit, whether it be robbery, murder, beating somebody up or something, is it worth 20 years in prison? Not many people, if you give them the choice to say 20 years in prison or this, would figure out a way to not do it.
Exactly.
So if they just think, the same way with tickets when you're driving your car and you're speeding, the same things with shootings. How many people would be killed and saved if you didn't do that, if you just didn't follow your gut feeling to be angry and mad and try to just resolve the problem yourself? And all those things, you have to decide. Whether you decide consciously, in other words, you think, well, I'll get caught if I do this. But it's like standing on the sidewalk and getting ready to use a crosswalk. You know, you got the right of way as a civilian in the crosswalk. But if there's a truck that weighs 80 tons driving down the road at 60 miles an hour and you step in the crosswalk, you're going to be dead right.
Should have thought about it.
Should have thought about it just a little bit. It applies to, you know, every single thing.
Right.
And same thing with thinking leads to a lot of misunderstandings. It leads to misunderstanding in friendships, into business deals, into family, you know, anything long term. You know, if you say, I want a cheeseburger today and tomorrow you want fish, that don't matter. It's an insignificant decision. But if it's a long-term decision, and it's with your family or friends or bosses or whoever it is, you maybe think about how it affects them. How does your action or inactions or whatever it is affect those people? And then other things, is it equal and fair? You know, one of my favorite examples is telling people that if I give a 5-year-old at a birthday party a cake and tell them to cut the cake because there's 10 people at the birthday party, they'll try their best to make 10 equal pieces. But you give it to a congressman and I swear he can't cut it 10 pieces.
If only the congressman was 6.
He don't know how to do that, you know.
Unfortunately.
And so it doesn't really matter, but that's kind of thinking about it in the way, is it fair or is it equal? And yet when you say fair and equal, they're kind of two different things, because everybody says equal is fair, and in a lot of cases when you're talking about adults, it is. It's fair, but if you look at me and say, I'm weigh 200, 300 pounds, I eat 2 hamburgers and then a child eats 1, then it wouldn't be fair to tell me I got to only eat 1, even though it's equal with the child that's eating 1. It's different. What is fair there is I would get 2 and he would get 1 if that's what we really needed to nourish ourselves. And then, so fair and equal are not necessarily the same, but they're used interchangeably in a lot of ways with people that say fair and equal. And thinking is good brain exercise. I mean, you know, people do calisthenics to do physical stuff, but, you know, if you think, you do some brain exercise, you're doing gymnastics.
Mental push-ups.
Exactly.
What would that look like, Dave?
You know, I would say that mental push-ups, and I've told my children this very many times, that if they come to me with a problem or a solution or whatever it is they come to me with, if they've told me something new that I haven't considered before, I will entertain whatever their story is, whatever they're trying to tell me. But if I've already evaluated that story, like I want this new car, and I'm saying, or kid's toy car, and I'm saying, I ain't get the money for that car, you ain't getting the car, I'm not going to change my mind because they said I want the new car, because that's already given, so to speak. But if they come with me and tell me something, you know, I got $10 and the car only costs 11, will you give me $1? I might give them $1. Mm-hmm. So you got to take in consideration what it does to the other person. And, you know, one of the things that we're definitely not trying to do here is to offend anybody. We're not trying to, by doing these examples and saying the things we've said, it's not our intention to offend somebody. We don't intend to offend, and hope we didn't. And also for thinking, you know, thinking is fun. Not for fun itself, sometimes it is, but for games and whatnot, thinking can be fun. And you got to think about fun sometimes, because you got to have some fun.
Yeah.
And when you're putting stuff in your head, thinking says, is that true or is that false? So they keep talking about fake news on TV and all this stuff all the time. And the reality is, so much of the news, we don't have the resources to check to see if it's fake.
Right.
Or if it's true.
If only we could just go double check and find out.
Well, I wish we could, but so far there's no way to do that.
No.
But in our brain, a lot of times, you know, and we had a discussion the other day about somebody tried to charge me for 300 gallons of gas in my truck. They did. This is not true. This is a story. And so tried to charge me for 300 gallons, and I said, that's not possible. I said, what do you mean it's not possible? My truck tank only holds 29 gallons. You can't put 300 gallons in a 29-gallon tank. And so my brain automatically dismisses that. But if he was charging me the bill for 300 gallons of gas, or if he was trying to tell me, no, that's what it took, or whatever, I got to challenge and think about that. I got to do something about that thing. So then there's also ridiculous. I mean, somebody says something that you know is just outrageously ridiculous. You don't listen, you don't hear.
Right.
You know, you got to say to yourself, don't put that in your brain. Don't accept that as being true.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Then you got to think about me. You know, who's going to think about you but you? Nobody thinks about everybody the same as if they were them. They think
Correct.
about them as another chain or another cog, another whatever. And that's often what we need when we're thinking is we need to think, how does our action or inaction or whatever it is affect the other people
Exactly.
in it, you know? And, you know, him and her, are they a citizen? Are they not a citizen? Are they an employee? Are they an employer? All those things have relationship problems. And is it common sense or is it uncommon sense? And are you unaware of what they're telling you or are you aware? And I really got one last thing to say, and it's a story, and I want to ask both of you this story, is I know that people say things, and I ask this question to a lot of people through the years, and so I asked, what do you think one of the bigger problems in the world is today? So what do you think? One of the bigger problems in the world today? And you can't be wrong because
Well,
there's so many things wrong in the world, you can't really be wrong at all.
well, I'm thinking
Okay, good. That's what I want
that
you to do.
perhaps one of the biggest problems today is that people don't think enough.
Oh, I would agree with that 100%.
Oh, you took mine, and that exactly, because as I sit here and listen, and as you said, not without offending anyone, because we have a very diverse panel here, and it's very interesting. Someone as myself who would not probably think of a question totally out the box would just answer in the common question way, like I did. No, I don't see any snakes on those pennies. No, I don't see a car. But the interesting thing about it is it's very true. If we just took 2 seconds, like they always say, take a deep breath before you say something when you're angry. Before you get ready to make any decision, take 2 seconds to think. And I'm learning something from that philosophy, and I think it's just I think that if more people did it, we could change a lot.
I think that's pretty good. I have a little different perspective on that thing, like some other things that you've heard me say.
I'm sure you do.
Surprise!
One of the things that I think the biggest problem in the world today is ships.
Ships,
Ships, yeah.
Oh, and we're in a Navy
SHIPS.
town, so watch out.
relationships.
Yeah,
Contract
relationships,
ships.
partnerships,
See, I appreciate that.
dictatorships,
See,
and
now
all
that's what I
those
thought.
all those kind of ships that are in there. If you don't have a relationship of some kind with a problem, it's probably a natural disaster.
Yeah.
Because most of all my problems, there's been a ship attached, whether it be a girlfriend, a kid, a boss, or whatever, or an interaction with a storekeeper, or whatever it is. I have a problem, so that's what I have.
Cheers to ships.
I'm ships, but you know, it's people use isms. Amy, my daughter, likes to use isms, but you know, same thing. It's just the way it works.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think
isms are pretty bad too sometimes, aren't they? Watch out for those
they
isms.
are the same. It's just a way of looking at something differently, and that's what we really want you to do. We want you to think, like our sign says. We worked a little bit on that sign, trying to get it together, and you know, it's like the sign. It keeps changing. It doesn't. There's not one way to think. Like our sign, one way. There's no one way to think, and so we'll leave that as our episode for today. And we got some things to put in there with it too. But I think we're done unless you guys got some comments.
Well, my only comment is that we thank you guys for tuning in, and we definitely would love to know what do you think, because your opinion matters. That's why we're doing this. So think hard, because Emmett is always going to have another way of thinking. So
Well, thank you. I tried to look. I do want to give you one bit of parting information that we never talked about, but that certainly is true. the way I come about my solution was kind of the same way with giving up. What's the opposite of up?
Down.
Down. What's the opposite of almost everything I think about? I can tell you what the opposite would be after years of experience. I just think that way, and I can't even help myself. You know, it's just something that I read, and I read T-shirts that have sayings on them, and they say something, and it doesn't say the same thing to me as it does to its owner, because it says to me what it reads, what it actually says.
You know, I had an example of something that you showed me the other day. I wish can get it, but you showed me a flyer, and it said my PSE. And you asked me, you said, "Is this your PSE?" And I thought to myself, well, no, I don't own it. And you said, well, why did they put it on there like it's yours? And I thought, I would like to write them and ask them that. So that is definitely a really good thing to think about, because it makes me feel like I have some kind of ownership of something that I don't have.
There you go, Eiffel.
It's trying to control you, yes, is what it's trying to do. I've had that discussion before, and I'm more literal about that kind of stuff. And actually, I wrote PSE about that in with my check that I send them all the time. So.
Oh.
But it does no good.
Oh,
They
no
don't
response?
they don't even answer, respond, or nothing.
Oh.
It's just the way it is. I think we're done. You got any more comments, anybody?
Thank you for tuning
No?
in.
Thank you very much for letting us talk.